Hey guys, Omni here. Today I wanted to talk about a couple of films that I saw this week, and rather than doing an individual video for each one of these, I figured just kind of talk about them both here, and we'll just kind of keep it nice, short, and sweet. One of these, I don't feel like most people are going to be talking about anyway, and the big talk of the town this weekend is more than likely going to be The Marvels. But the other film I saw this week was Digimon 02, The Beginning, which I was really excited for, but I still wanted to talk about it and give you guys my thoughts on it, because if I see it in the theater, I try to at least talk about it with you guys. With that said, we'll just kind of start with The Marvels, because I feel like that's going to be the one most people are going to be clicking on this video for, and I'll just get that out of the way. So this film is very messy. I'll say that. The editing in this is breakneck, man. I don't know if they just cut out a huge amount of scenes, but it definitely feels like we are just jumping around. Sometimes we're just in one place and then we're just gone. We're just gone and moving on to the next thing. It's pretty jarring at times, and it feels to me, and I don't know if this is the case, it feels to me that we are missing scenes. This movie, for me, needed to slow down. There's a lot of moments that I really wanted to live in, but this movie is more concerned about sprinting to the finish. Like we've been saying for a while now, a lot of Marvel movies as of late just feel like the goal is to set up the next movie, and they don't care about the movie that is here. That's exactly how I felt based on the way this was edited, the way they just kind of threw out some explanations and expositions for things that, honestly, for some of us, we've been waiting for some answers on, and it felt like they were genuinely just like, well, here's an answer, and we don't care, and we're gonna move on. Monica and Carol's reunion also is another thing that I feels like suffers in this, because it's something they definitely have been hinting at and teasing, this kind of stale blood. I don't want to say bad blood, but stale blood between the two of them in the span of things that have happened, you know, since Carol left, and all the things that have transpired in the in-between. For the most part, it just feels like we don't care about what's actually going on. We try to tie it in and make it a little bit of a connective sequel to the last film by kind of having us deal with the fallout of Captain Marvel's decisions at the end of that film. You know, there's a lot of fun things that they could have played with. There was a very interesting story in here that they just didn't feel interested in telling at all. Instead, what they focused on, which does work for a lot of it, but it's just kind of it's more of a band-aid than anything. I had a lot of fun with the dynamic of our main trio. Having Kamala Khan on the big screen was the thing that really was selling me on this movie. Her excitement, Iman Vellani's enthusiasm, her energy is infectious. And every time she's on screen, her family is on screen, because honestly, they were in the movie way more than I expected them to be, and I just love their dynamic. While her show did have a couple of issues that I expressed when we were reacting to it, I really enjoyed their family dynamic and these characters, and I'm glad that they're getting this exposure and getting this elevation, and that she's being lifted up into the pantheon along with the rest of them. You know, her enthusiasm, her excitement, she feels like us on the screen in a lot of ways when she gets to interact with these people who in her world have been flying around saving the day and all this kind of stuff, you know, getting to meet her hero. And a lot of that was where this movie was really firing on all cylinders for me. All the scenes with her, with the phasing, the switching. Honestly, there's a couple of fight sequences in this where the camera work, and surprisingly enough, they chilled off on whoever was editing this movie for the vast majority of it, and let some of these action sequences play out very smoothly. Some great little sweet sequences and ways they utilize their switching, because something happens in the film that gets their powers entangled, and anytime one of them uses it, this is in the trailer, this isn't a spoiler, if one of them uses the power, they will switch places with them. And there's an explanation for that, and it plays into the greater machinations at play and really the greater purpose that this movie serves. And it's a lot of fun. They get really creative with it. There's great montages throughout this that really show them getting used to each other, getting used to each other's movesets. Because again, this is Monica's first outing as a hero, and she still doesn't really know what all she can do. Much like Iman, she's kind of a rookie, and the only seasoned person here when it comes to their powers is Captain Marvel. But because of the situation they're in, she's very, very heavily nerfed. Understandably so. It's this alliance of necessity that brings them all together. Like the villain, Dar-Benn, again, it's not like a new complaint for the MCU. She's very flat. Her motivations make sense, but there's not a lot of development there. It feels like there was a more interesting story that could have been told, but again, we have an end goal we need to get to, and that's what the movie's concerned with. I think the biggest thing that people are going to be talking about this movie after they've seen it is going to be Iman Vellani and the ending and the mid-credits scene. That's it. With everything else, as of late, I just feel like we need to be focused on the story at hand. Setup is great. The future is great. The next movie should be great. That should be the hope. But we need to focus on making sure we're in the present as well. If you're just looking for a fun time at the theater, I think you could go out and enjoy yourself. Just turn your brain off, sit back, throw some popcorn in your mouth, and have a good time with your friends, your family, and all that. You know, I feel like, you know, probably kids are going to be more into this one too because of the tone, the slapsticky nature of it all. And honestly, I'd hate to say this, I don't think you would be wrong for waiting for this to come out on Disney Plus if you just want to sit back and wait to watch this one at home, to be honest. And I don't like saying that, but it is what it is. I'm not going to lie to you about how I feel. Now, moving on to the next film that I saw this week, and that was Digimon O2: The Beginning. I was really looking forward to this film, and I think the bar was set real high for me after the last film that came out with Last Evolution Kizuna, because that movie was gut-wrenchingly good. Like the action, the animation, and its story, the lengths that it took these characters, man. And this does a lot of things that definitely caught me off guard. And I think a lot of, you know, that's the kind of the association this show has, the kind of rivalry in the public eye that it's got with Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. They are very much very different beasts. What I love about Digimon that Pokemon never gets into the weeds of is that it really deals with the human condition in a lot of ways. It's set in the real world. You know, there's the digital world, but the human world is our world. Real locations, real places. You know, they never shy away from this being our world. And when they allow us to live in that, we deal with a lot of existential human issues, depression, anxiety, failure. There's a lot of heavy themes that the series tackles. You know, even at a young age with the kids when they're shot off into summer camp, into the digital world, become Digidestined and all that kind of stuff, the fun little adventure story that just kind of turns darker the longer it goes along its journey. But at the end of the day, it's this hopeful story about growing up. And the last film really set the bar really high with Last Evolution Kizuna, as it sees these kids who we met when they were 10, who are now 22. They've graduated college. They're trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their lives, what is next for them. It left me speechless and just left a knot in my stomach at the end of that movie, because it's just, it hits so close to home to honestly anybody learning with moving on and growing up and stuff like that, about acceptance, about responsibility, about life, about our next, tackling our next journey with open arms. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. And that's the thing I love about it. In a lot of ways, it aged with its audience the more we come back to the original crew. And I was excited to see what we did next, because, you know, like in the original anime, they passed the torch to a new set of kids for a vast majority of it. You know, we had a little intermingling because there were some kids in the original group that were younger than the rest of them, and they stayed on while the rest was swapped out with a couple new characters. We're following that new crew. Last Evolution Kizuna was kind of the sunsetting truly for some of these characters in the interim. And this one kind of settled us into the next group to kind of give them a story, to give them something to do in the modern day with their new age and enlightenment, the evolution of these characters and all that. And unfortunately, it didn't reach anywhere near the heights of Kizuna, man. I hate saying that. I went into this like super excited, and I left it just being extremely puzzled. It's one of those films where, aside from a couple of revelations about the history, which kind of creates its own problems as well, because it's all about the beginning. It's about the start of the Digidestined. It's about the inception of that, and kind of a secret history, if you will, because at its center is the first human to ever create a bond with a Digimon. And it's about them meeting this character and kind of helping them through some stuff. And it's some pretty dark stuff. I'll just go, because if you go into this, I honestly feel like you should probably be a little prepared. There is child abuse. There are some scenes that are straight up like horror. Like there's a scene in the film where it turns into basically a horror movie. For a Digimon film, graphic bloody violence, it took a really dark turn. It doesn't shy away from it. And this is what I was talking about. You know, this is one of those things that really set this series apart from stuff like Pokemon, which just kept it all like tee-hee, ha-ha, kid stuff. For the most part, like, I'm not gonna lie, Pokemon does get, you know, it does have its moments where it can be a little more mature, but it really kind of rides this more younger skewed line where this is not afraid to tackle some darker, heavier, more mature content while still being for kids. And unfortunately, when the film's tackling that sort of stuff, that's honestly when it's the most interesting, because everything else was just, it was just boring, man. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't invigorating. Honestly, you could have traded out the O2 crew for literally anybody, and they would have been able to teach this kid the exact same lesson that he learned here. Unlike Kizuna, it doesn't dive into anything deeper. There's nothing that makes these characters necessary to this journey other than their physical power when it came to defeating the physical threat at the end of the film. That was it. You know, that's the only thing that kind of justifies their involvement at all, because you could argue any Digidestined, anybody that had a Digimon partner at any point could have served this purpose. You know, I liken this to the second X-Files movie for me. After all that time, to reunite for a Monster of the Week episode that was essentially made into a film, it's kind of disappointing in a lot of ways. Like, the highlight of it was them reuniting, them coming together, them hanging out, them being together, seeing our old friends, being reunited with them, seeing them in action, seeing them battle, even though they used some of the worst evolution combinations during some of the fights at the end. Seemed a little ridiculous. Could have used literally anything else, but it was fun seeing them come together. Some hearing them, the voices again on screen, seeing them all grown up. You know, it was fun reuniting with these characters. I just feel like they were wasted, and I can't even say that it's because of my expectations were high either, because like even going into this, man, like we enter the movie the same way we left the movie, but honestly, I feel like we lose by the end of the film. Overall, I mean, it was just a huge disappointment. The animation was great, seeing the gang back again was great, but that's kind of it. You know, me and a buddy went and saw this, and we both just left it completely puzzled. We'll see what happens. I know they're talking about continuing on. We still have, like, the film takes place in 2012. The epilogue scene at the end of O2 is in 2027, so we still have plenty of time for them to still fill in a lot of that gap. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do next, but I know that they're working on some other stuff. I just hope the next one is way better than this, because this was just a huge disappointment after what was an amazing film in Last Evolution Kizuna. I think even if you're not a Digimon fan, like, you can watch that film and it'll still impact you. This, like, even as a Digimon fan, I was just like, well, shit. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you. Have you seen either of these films? If you have, I'd love to hear from you guys. What did you guys think of the movies? Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe if not already. Before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Manny, Cher, Ryan, Karen, Yori Kurskon, Margaret Grace, Melito, Rammer Anguiano, Jeffrey Hale, Jake Contrell, Eric Official, Amy Becca, and Casey Wood. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. That's it for this video, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody.